My name is TristanBassingthwaighte. I'm actually from Missoula, Montana, way back in the past. Kind of a little hippie enclave of the otherwise conservative state. Since then, I've lived in Florida, Singapore, Denmark, Thailand, China, and spent a year in a NASA simulation up on the slopes of Mauna Loa. In order to sort of figure out what isolation and the, sort of extreme environment you're living in will do to teamwork, that was kind of one of the major focuses. We got tested all the freaking time. I think we had anywhere between 1 and 3 tests a day, and one from a university would always be on Wednesday, and the stress tests that would measure something out of our saliva was Tuesdays and Thursdays, VR on Fridays. We had timed EVA tests, moving stuff around and trying to communicate as a team with various mixes of people, and that was pretty much the year. So hopefully they will take all that and find out the personality types that work well together, red flags, plenty of those, and be able to create a crew for the actual longer distance missions to the moon or Mars or long duration missions in space, and just pick the people they know that will do well based on all the empirical evidence from stuff like this. It's true, you're in a dome and you can't leave without a spacesuit, and you're not seeing anybody else like you're supposed to be on a Mars mission. But a lot of people, I realized when I got back, don't understand that light has a speed limit and that Mars is very far away. So when I explained to them that, yes, there's no phone either, and there's no internet, you can't get anything besides an email dump. You're just alone. They had no idea that you couldn't actually just talk to people on Skype, for example, which of course you can't. So eventually, your friends and family and most everybody kind of gets used to you being gone, because if they know 10 people, one of them is missing, and it kind of fills a slot. But for me, 9 people were missing, and all of them stopped writing me after a couple of months. So I had to get a little saucy with emails every now and then, reminding people to write back or something, including family. And it'll definitely wear on you, because the people you're with are, they can be cool, they can be extremely aggravating, but ultimately they're all people that are about your age, that are not family or, nephews or grandparents or all the rest. So, the type of person you have to deal with has shrunk enormously, and it gets old. While I was living in China working on the Masters, I came across the blog of Jocelyn Dunn, who was in High Seas 3 is one of their science team members, and got to chatting. I was basically just looking for fun information, any sort of unique perspective that I could bring to the thesis. And she suggested that I apply to the next mission, which was High Seas 4. And I never expected to, get in or have anything come from it, just because I am kind of a designer, space art goofy guy, and not an engineer or a scientist or anything like that. But figured it'd be some good info, and just applied and did the psych tests and the phone interviews, and somehow got to go on the wilderness survival trip in Wyoming, and everybody liked me to the point where they were like, let's just have them do it anyways. And I got selected for the mission and got to do space architecture research and be a guinea pig for NASA and everything. It was crazy. Going into the first day was actually, I think the initial thing for maybe everybody could have been relief, just because, give or take, I think 8 days getting briefed on how to do the various experiments, setting up VR laptops, doing all sorts of media stuff, and it's exhausting. You're sleeping in new places every day and going around the island, and once you finally lock the door and you've waved goodbye and everything, and you hear the cars kind of drive down the mountain for an hour or so, you're just oh, thank God, I am being left alone. It's quiet. I'm kind of more of an introvert, despite how much I like to talk. So I actually loved it for probably the first month or so. It was super relaxing. I think the biggest part of like my mental sort of state of mind that got me through everything was basically the work in a lot of respects. I mean, I was very good friends with Carmel Johnston, the commander, just because we're both from Montana, and had some hobbies going in. You know, we got a little time to play the ukulele. I made a bunch of goofy T-shirt art that got online. I was also working on the dissertation at the time, so it's like, if I was bored, it was actually my job to sit there and be like, well, why am I bored? Is it something to do with the environment? Could I have a better VR experience, or do augmented reality, or could I change the programming, or whatever? And so I would sort of get to analyze my architectural experience surveys I had created, and got to work on my graduate stuff. Oh yeah, I mean, everybody knows you can use VR to make a small space seem larger. So we were testing it a bit to see if we could do the same thing in the dome. And my basic argument would be that if I'm going to use a clunky VR setup that hasn't been turned into like the Matrix yet, like I would love to play the amazing VR games you see. I mean, that's also escapism. So is movies, reading a book. But I would be very fine just putting on all the gear and then doing Halo or something for an hour. But we had like a VR Second Life themed world where we would, visit things, and it was kind of laggy and beta type, and it wasn't amazing, but your friends and family could go in on their computers, asynchronously, so you're never seeing people on, but you could see like a little orb and click on it, like a virtual reality avatar of like my stepmom or dad or some friends that invited to the project would be there, and they'd like be able to say stuff or whatever. So you can interact with family in a weird kind of Star Wars, not at the right moment phase type thing. So I mean, it was very interesting, and we had a couple others. I think the one I enjoyed the most, we would lay down a lawn chair, and we had one of those like Burger King heat lamps that whatever keeps you warm up over your right shoulder, and then we had like a 30-minute video that had been taken with a 360 camera, and you're just lying on the beach in Australia, and kangaroos are going by, and the sun is kind of up in the top right, so it feels like it's warming your shoulder, and you just enjoy being on the beach for a little bit. We would do that, let's see, it was probably for a period of like 6 months. We would do the chilling out VR, and I think we would do maybe hour sessions, so maybe like 20 minutes on the beach in Australia, and then one of the other ones maybe going through Ireland a bit, and then the next week I got to do like various scenes of Boston. And so, to me, it looks like I'm in Boston. I can look around, and it's just like people walking by and everything. And then 5 minutes later, it's a new part of Boston. But because they're looking at a camera, they're all just like walking by, like, what's that? And then they break contact and walk on. So I had a great time with that one, because it's like people walk up, and you're just making eye contact, and you get to have stare downs. What you want, guy? And then they always, lose and keep walking. So you're just like, that's right. I'm the cock and a walk in this area, and nobody can defeat my gaze. Get a little weird when you're up there for so long. Yeah, right now, basically all past crews sort of scatter to the wind. I mean, we're still associated with the project in some respects. High Seas 4 especially will do media a little bit more because, the Year on Mars is kind of an attractive title to be able to put in any piece. The research from the universities that was done on us is being published. It'll come out on, ResearchGate. You can probably go to the High Seas website or contact Kim Binstead, just because she's much closer with all the researchers, as she was with them the whole year, and I just got all the research. As far as, say, the profession and everything, I've got your standard boring architecture job downtown to help with the student loans. And I'm also part of Deep Space Ecology. If you want to look them up, they are doing sort of space architectural environmental design, where they will create a massive dome, and that can be in Antarctica or a food-scarce region of Earth or on the moon or Mars, whatever you want. And they are figuring out the way to create a simplified ecology that will allow you to essentially be resource independent from Earth. All the food you need, water you need is created right there. It cleans your air, so 6 people could live in one of these domes forever and never need something from Earth again. And that's how we would begin seeding the universe with humanity. I'm doing a little more of the basic design, artwork, branding, because we don't have the space right now to build like a 20,000 square meter dome. They've gotten 2 patents for their ecological model, which is really cool. We're working on sending up a probe with a miniature version of that to the ISS later this year. And the next year or 2 is kind of going to help us figure out what's going on. Like, if they legitimately, like, get the investors necessary and start being able to work on these systems on a larger scale, like, that would turn into a kind of fun volunteer thing to probably a full-time job. And I might even move to the mainland and start doing the crew cabin design and everything. Who knows?